Hello and welcome to Spacemen Pod. I'm Ian Edmond.
And I'm Mark Lascelles.
And this time we're going to be doing something a bit different. I don't know if after 2 episodes you can really talk about regular features, but what we've got in terms of regular features, chatting about songs, chatting about gigs, that's all going to take a little break for a while because we were very happy to be having a long chat with Mark Refoy, former guitarist at Spacemen 3, just for a little time, much longer in Spiritualized. But as you'll find out, if you don't already know about these things during our interview, has been involved in so many other things as well. We chatted to Mark for a bit longer than we were expecting. So what we're going to have in this episode is just the first part of a long chat we did, which covers his time up to being a member of Spacemen 3. But we'll get to that shortly. What else have we got to talk about today? Well, I think we covered all the current stuff when we were being introduced the last episode, but one thing we haven't mentioned yet is of course that Pete Kember is coming and doing some Sonic Boom gigs, which have already been rescheduled once, but on the hope that things will still be okay in early September, which we can't guarantee, of course, because there's current worries about COVID variants floating around, but hoping that things are still okay in September.
We're keeping everything crossed.
These are the dates that are coming up. I think this is all of them. They're mostly listed on Sonic Boom Bandcamp page, although one of these was missing from there, so there may be others, but I think this is probably all of them. So 3rd of September, that's Manchester. 4th of September, Birkenhead. 5th of September, Leeds, a venue, Mark, that I know is a favourite of yours.
This is true. He's playing at the Broodnail, the first time for a very, very long time. The Broodnail's changed quite a bit since he was last there. I think last time he played was when it was really being built up to the wonderful place that it is now. And I think there was a burnt-out car in the car park, and I think Pete was slightly dubious about the play. Anyway, the Broodnail is nothing like that now. It's still my favourite venue in the UK. Nicest people, best sound system, not the easiest place to get to, but well worth a trek. And I'm absolutely delighted that Pete's coming there.
Yeah, no, I know it's got a great reputation, and certainly you've talked it up a lot in the past, and hope I'll get the chance to visit something there someday. But
indeed,
stuck down on the south coast, that's not that likely at the moment. 7th of September, Newcastle upon Tyne. 8th September, Birmingham. 9th September in Brighton. 11th September in Camden, and 12th in Bristol. As I think we mentioned last time, the Sonic Boom remix album, Almost Nothing Is Nearly Enough, was out fairly recently. There's some good reinterpretations on there. I need to give it a bit more attention, I have to say. I think I've only given it a play once, but very, very nice to have that.
It also looks fantastic, similar to the packaging of the recently released album. Amazing splatter vinyl. That's just a great package.
I know that people who've got the vinyl, well, it's only available on vinyl, isn't it? Or download, have said that it is a very impressive slab of vinyl there. Yeah, and it does look lovely from the photos I've seen of it. Yeah. Well, here then is the first part of our interview with Mark Refoy. Has been in many bands, which you'll encounter in this first chat. And he's just got some lovely memories of those times. Well, we're very grateful for him for the time he spent with us. Enjoy this first part of the interview. Well, we're very happy today to be talking with Mark Refoy, guitarist for a little while in Spacemen 3, for a much longer while in Spiritualized, but was involved in so many interesting projects as well, many of which I think people will be hearing about for the first time. So, well, Mark, you were a Northampton boy when all the musical stuff started. Was that where you grew up as well?
No, actually, we came to Northampton in when I was 8. It's a little tiny village on the outskirts of the town, which is where my friend Carlo Morocco had his studio, which the Spacemen eventually recorded Roller Coaster and Walking with Jesus and those sessions, you know.
Mm-hmm. So was that Piddlington?
Piddington, yeah.
Piddington.
Yeah.
Okay.
Apparently there's 2 Piddingtons in the country. One's in Oxfordshire and the other one is where we moved to. in Northamptonshire.
So I know that you started doing your first band straight after leaving school, but presumably you've been into the local music scene for a while then anyway, because I know that there were lots of gigs and things that you were seeing in Northampton around that time.
Yeah.
Who was doing the circuit around then? I know that there were proper bands as well as local ones as well.
Well, there was obviously Barhouse, but there was loads of like local punk bands like the Eyesores and Grip, bands you'd never heard of, Guillotine, proper, you know, punk bands that were influenced by the first wave of, you know, punk in 76, 77. But the ones that stood out were Barhouse because they were like nothing, you know. I mean, I know they've since been credited, if that's the right word, as the originators of the goth movement, but they weren't goth at all when they first started. They were just weird. They were more like Iggy and the Stooges or something, you know.
They're actually quite scary, some of the early stuff. I remember somebody the first album and playing it, and that first track, it was gave me the heebie-jeebies. It was terrifying.
Yeah, all good Catholic boys. Yeah, I remember we saw them at a place called the Paddocks in Harpole, and John Peel used to come and do these like roadshow gigs, they were called at the time. And one of them was when Barhouse were playing, and my brother was right at the front, and he must have been about 15 or 16 or something. And the first song they did was Bela Lugosi's Dead, you know, their first single.
Classic.
Had this really long intro, and Pete Murphy was twirling his shawl around my brother, and it was like very touch and go. It was like, oh, what the fuck's he gonna do? And my brother just stood stock still and didn't move a muscle. And then when he started singing, he just threw his shawl away and started doing his, you know, singing. He's like, phew. Yeah, it's great.
Well, I think the first band that you formed straight after school was Syndromes.
Syndromes, yeah.
How did that all come together?
That was me and a mate at school called Nick, and we just loved, you know, The Clash, Joy Division, all that sort of thing. And I didn't have any money, but he was going to be a student up in Nottingham, so he lent me a part of his student grant to buy my first guitar, a Telecaster. And we started our band called the Syndromes. I think it was mainly because at the local youth club, the people who were running it were accusing us of being a load of layabouts, which they were true. But they said, "Oh, you'll never amount to anything," and blah blah blah. And I went, "We'll play a gig here and we'll show you." And we did, and we formed. I always wanted to form a band, you know, and be in a band, etc. But that gave us the impetus to actually put it into motion. And so my mate Nick played back. He couldn't play. I had to teach him. And it was just very basic, you know. This is a C chord. Just stay on that, you know.
You originally had Carlo on drums, I believe.
And Carlo was on drums, yeah. And we did this one gig at Hackleton Village Hall, where we did loads of covers. We did a couple of my songs as well. And what did we do? We did Police and Thieves. Well, the Clash's version of Police and Thieves, even though it was Junior Mervyn. Jonathan Richman, Roadrunner. I Feel Fine, the Beatles. I Can't Control Myself, the Trogs version. I can't remember now.
But I mean, you certainly had your own repertoire for a while. I mean, it was a band that went on for a good few years, really.
What, the Syndromes?
Yes.
Nick left, but he, you know, that was because he didn't really want to be a musician, you know. So I got this guy in called Steve Harshaw, who was he was a bass player. He was a nurse in a local hospital where I was working at the time as a cleaner, and I used to see him around about gigs, and he always looked like a kind of interesting character, a big guy with loads of tattoos, and that was quite rare in 1982 or whatever. And so I got him in on bass, And there was this local guy who used to play in a group called the Russians, called John Lucci Bello. And he came to see us at our youth club gig. And he thought we were really good. And for us, the Russians were like this proper local band. They'd done a John Peel session. So in our eyes, they'd made it. They were like stars. And he came to see us in this local gig that we did. And he was quite impressed. And that really blew us away, that this like local musician who was done a John Peel session liked us. So when Carlo went his separate ways, we asked this guy if he'd drum with us, and so he drummed with us, and he actually drummed on the first demo that we did, and that was with Nick on bass.
If I'm right, you didn't actually put anything out at the time. I know you recorded a few demos, but I think a lot of your output has been subsequently issued on a CD a few years ago.
That's right. Yeah. This guy, I don't know him. I don't know how he got to know about us, but he emailed me, and he runs this label. I forget what it's called now, but it specializes in like unknown punk bands, or not necessarily punk, but punk mod, sort of like early 80s, late 70s, bands that had a sizable local impact in their local area at the time, but never really released anything or went any further than their initial impetus of wanting to just play in a band. So I don't know how he got hold of us, but I'm glad he did, because he ended up putting out this CD, which was a compilation of our demos and a couple of live tracks, I think. And yeah, I'm really glad he did it. You know, it's
I mean, it's very post-punk. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
it's coming out. You can tell it is coming from the era. But were you the only songwriter in the band?
In those days, it wasn't like I write all the songs. We would just get together and jam, and I would sing a load of garbage, you know, when we were rehearsing, and then put it together, you know, later on. I mean, we would record stuff on cassette, you know, recorders, and then I'd take the cassette home and analyze it and try and figure out what I was singing about, if I could make it out.
I know towards the end of the Syndromes, there was a tantalizing possibility of things happening, wasn't there? And of a contract coming about.
Yeah, we used to take all our cassettes down to like London, and I'd get all the addresses of people like Rough Trade, etc., all the labels, and just tout around, just knock on their doors and go, "Oh, we're a band, here we are, here's our demo tape, give it a listen." And in fact, I remember we went to Rough Trade, and this would have been about 1980 or 81. And this guy was really, really friendly. And he said, yeah, I'll give it a listen now. And he put it on in the office. And this was in the Rough Trade offices. And some guy sort of turned around and said, "Oh, turn that down, I'll try and do some work." So he put his headphones on and he listened to it. And we were like, it was like a weird sort of like punk X Factor. We were standing there in the office, like looking around like that, while he was like nodding away on these headphones. And he took them off and he went, yeah, I like, and he listened to all 4 songs. And he said, "Yeah, I like it." And he gave a really good, I can't remember exactly what he said. And he gave us his name and address and everything. And he said, "You know, give us a shout when you do more stuff." And turns out he was Mayo Thompson from Red Crayola.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and at the time I had no idea, you know, who he was. Just this like friendly guy at Rough Trade, and but yeah, it was him.
Wow.
Transparent.
That's brilliant.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think you went on till sometime early 83 then, but it seems to be pretty common for people in all sorts of bands around at that time to do more than one thing at a time. So I know there were other things going on as well. I think I'm right in saying that the next one, or the next one to start, even though while the Syndromes were still going on, was Cellar 16.
Yeah.
Bit of overlap again there with some of the members.
Cellar 16 was
82.
Yeah, and we were best described once as UB40 on speed, which was quite accurate in the sound of, you know, the music and the style, etc. And not that we would advocate the use of such substances, but yeah, John Lucibello, the drummer in the Syndromes, knew Alan and Desmond. Now, Alan was unfortunately, Alan died earlier on this year, which was a real shock. But he was this super talented bass player, and his friend Desmond played the saxophone, and it was in the basement of his house in number 16 St Andrews Road in Semillon in Northampton, so cellar 16.
Yeah.
So we used to just get together and jam, and it was completely instrumental, if I remember rightly. Yeah, we didn't have a singer. It was just me on thrashing away on guitar, Desmond on saxophone, Alan playing his bass, and Lucci on drums. And it kind of went in tandem with the Syndromes at the same time, but because it was so different, it wasn't like the Syndromes, as you say, was like kind of like post-punk or whatever, whereas Cellar 16 was very, it was funkier, because Alan used to do all these funky bass lines and everything. And
yeah, you were hardly in competition with yourselves, really. It's a completely different prospect. Although I noticed there is some sax on one of the Syndromes tracks.
Oh yeah, that was an instrumental, which was probably one of the songs that I couldn't think of any lyrics to. So I think it might have been John, the drummer, suggested that this guy called Nigel Buckner comes and plays sax with us, and he sure enough, you know, he just turned up to the studio, ran through the track, and yeah, he did it. Yeah, it was great. Like this free jazz almost sort of thing. Because also what was happening at the time in Northampton was this thing called the Northampton Musicians Collective. And it was like a hub where like loads of individuals and bands used to revolve around these meetings at a pub called The Fish on every Sunday night, I think. And so it was like a kind of like a networking thing in those days. I mean, that word didn't exist then, but it was good that you could just turn up and meet people who you would normally never have met, or you would only have seen at gigs in town, and you're all like-minded. You wanted to put music out, and you're obsessed with music. And
did a lot of bands come out of that?
I don't think anybody came out of it, you know, to any degree of like success or anything like that. But it was a real good fulcrum sort of meeting point.
Sounds like a great idea, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, that Northampton Under Glass cassette, which got reissued on CD a little while ago, I wouldn't know without checking out, because names on there that I wouldn't recognize. But just looking into things for talking to you, the number of people who were in some bands and then split off and went into other ones, it's not at all impossible that there is some things there that started off people's careers. There was Whistle Test did a little feature on that.
Oh god,
and you can find it on YouTube, and there's a chat, by which point the centre had moved to the Black Lion, but they do that little round table interview, and John is one of the people they talk to there.
That's right. That's all about the NMC, the Northampton Musicians Collective. That's right.
Yeah. But we'll come back to that, because by the time it cuts around to a brief appearance from you in that, there's a different band going on. So we'll be there in a moment. Yeah, John described Cellar 16 as being a bit like Pigbag as well, which I can see as another comparison. And I noticed earlier in the year a little clip of you lot playing at the Black Lion found its way onto Facebook. I haven't seen it on YouTube or anywhere else, so I don't know how easy it is to share it. But you're doing Horny Dog, which
that's right, yeah.
Which John said in one of his interviews, Horny Dog got its name because Desmond's dog was humping Mark's leg at the time of writing that number.
I've got vague memories of that.
I think they were probably the sort of shortest lived of the bands that we're going to talk about that you've been in today? Because as far as I
Who,
can,
Cellar 16?
yeah, I think it was a purely 82 affair.
Yeah.
But also, while Syndromes was still in existence, I think that's when you got involved in The Tempest.
Yeah. Now there was this guy, Alex Novak, and his brother John as well. They were both in different bands, but they started off with this punk band called the Eyesores in Northampton, and I think they subsequently had links with Glass, Dave Barker, and everybody knew everybody in this little town. And Alex put the word out that he wanted to start a new band. I can't remember exactly how it happened. It might have been to do with John Lucibello and Alex, but yeah, The Tempest. I don't even remember how it was all happening at the same. At one point, there was the Syndromes, Cellar 16, and The Tempest.
Yeah,
all happening at the same time.
I think during 82 they were certainly all in it, and early 83.
Yeah.
I think they were indeed all around at the same time.
Yeah.
Of course, before Alex formed The Tempest, when he was in Religious Overdose with Richard Formby.
Richard Formby, yeah.
Yeah. Someone else who comes to play a role in a Spacemen story later on as well.
That's right, yeah.
With The Tempest, I think that was the first band you were involved with that actually did get to the stage of putting out some records.
Yeah, because Alex had his. Oh no, it wasn't Glass. Was it Glass?
I haven't made a note of the labels on my little notes here.
Anagram.
I know it went on to Anagram eventually. The first one wasn't on Anagram, but I can't remember what it was on. I don't think it was on Glass.
Yeah.
So there was a 7-inch called Lady Left This.
Lady Left This and Attic. Yeah, and we recorded those over at Beck Studios in Wellingborough, and that was like Derek was like the Martin Hannett of Northamptonshire. Everybody who went there, when you did a demo with an idea of what you wanted to do, if you played like your rough cassette live recording of your song that you were going to eventually record and compared it to the one that Derek produced, it would be like, wow. And he just knew everything about how to make a song sound like a proper song. I can't put it any better than that. And that's why loads of people used to go there. Bauhaus went there. They recorded Bela Lugosi's Dead there, and they actually drafted him in to come and like assist on their later albums, etc. And I think they're in the process of writing a book about Beck Studios and Derek himself.
Oh wow.
So yeah, the Syndromes recorded there. We did a few demos there. And then This Parade and The Tempest recorded there as well.
And we did a Kid Jensen session with The Tempest, I think.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We're getting a bit of attention on the evening radio things.
Yeah. It was so long ago.
And
I mean, you're saying that, and I hadn't forgotten about it, but I don't
hadn't thought about it, presumably.
Yeah. David Jensen, because he was one of the. He wasn't quite John Peel.
Yeah.
So it was.
But it was a halfway John Peel. There was enough credibility in that sort of thing. The sound of The Tempest. I mean, there's a slight sort of goth tinge to some of those sorts of bits. I think the guitar sound reminded me a little bit of sort of that early Susie and the Banshees type sound. It's a really interesting sort of sound. I don't quite know how you get that sort of thing, really. It's but it's also got the slight beginnings of if there was any one word I would use to try and sum up your style across everything, there'd be shimmering. And there's a beginning of some of that in bits of it, I think.
Well, that's thank you. Yeah. Well, I remember when we were in Beck, and Derek Tompkins was like mixing the song. This is with The Tempest. It was with that song Attic. And at one point, he took his glasses off, and he turned around to me and he didn't know my name or anything. He went, "That is a fine piece of guitar playing." And I was like, Oh, thank you, sir.
You can't ask for much more really at that stage in your
Yeah,
recording
yeah.
career.
Oh, that was it. I was made up from then on.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, of course, with the Tempest, you went on and recorded an album, but then you already alluded to another act before the album came out. Yourself and some of the other guys went off to form This Parade.
This parade was basically the Syndromes, because Steve left the Syndrome. Actually, no, looking back, I was being a bit of a prima donna, and I asked Steve that I didn't want to play with him anymore, which, to my eternal regret, I regret doing that. And but he went on to form his own band, the Love Ambassador, and they were good. They did a lot of stuff. But Alan from Cellar 16 came over into Syndromes with me and John Lucibello, but we changed our name to This Parade because it didn't seem right to be the Syndromes when Steve wasn't there anymore,
Well, you put out a 12-inch as
Oh
part of
God,
This
yeah.
Parade. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had that years ago, I think. Might even still have a copy of that.
But that seems to have been a fairly short-lived affair on the whole.
Yeah, it was in those days when you're in your early 20s and that, like 6 weeks can be like 6 months, and
Yeah.
a lot of things happen in a short space of time, and it just fizzled out basically. And I think Alan left This Parade, and we got in Adi Rhodes, who then subsequently became a member of Telltale Hearts with me, Tim, and Adi, and a drum machine.
And that, as far as I can see, is the next development. Then Telltale Hearts began
Yes.
around that time. I don't know exactly when, but it must have been by late '85, because you played on the bill at the first of the Christmas on Mars events
Yeah.
at Ben Hall and Rugby. So that was the end of '85. So was it all the people from the band you'd been in previously, or was it slightly different? Did you form Telltale Hearts, or was it an existing thing that you morphed into?
No, Telltale Hearts was myself, Tim Sansom, and Adi Rhodes. And Tim had been a mate of mine since about '82, and he was just in our circle of friends, and he was a very amazingly intelligent, fantastic songwriter and lyricist. And I don't know how it came about, but we probably just went, oh, let's record a few songs together, and it just developed into playing together after a night out or whatever, and then deciding to go to a local demo studio, cassette porter studio, not like a big recording studio, just bang some demos out, and then we decided to, let's start a band. And I think I got the name from it by this from a book of like horror stories, like with Edgar Allan Poe's Telltale Heart in it.
You'd not been aware of the
We were
American band?
totally unaware
Yeah.
of the other American band. So
I mean, some names just right for choosing, really, aren't there? There's plenty of bands with.
There's loads of slipstreams. There's a few syndromes,
Well, bringing things together from some of the people we've already been involved with around to the main topic of what we're doing, I found an interview with John where he's asked, is there a local band you wish you drummed with? And he says, there's not a Northampton band I can think of yet. I did my utmost for some 10 minutes or more in a pub corridor in the summer of 1985 to try and persuade Spacemen 3 to have 2 drummers after the first time I saw them at the Black Lion pub in Giles Street. At the time, they had 2 guitars and 1 drummer, and their response to my question was, can you play the bass? Well, I could learn. This is indeed, yes, John.
Oh.
He says, well, I could learn, I suppose. But they were brilliant that night, playing to about 15 non-paying customers on a Thursday night. Now, that band I would love to have joined, without a doubt. Some 3 months later, at the same venue, I took Mark Refoy along to their next performance with a far larger audience, and now with a bass player. Oh well, one can always dream. So John must be getting a little bit muddled up in his
He's
memories.
getting mixed up there. Yeah.
Because I know the first time you saw Spacemen 3 was
No bass player.
Was August '85, when,
Yep.
as you say, still no bassist. Yeah, that's interesting because it shows that they were thinking about going back to having a bass player, because Pete
Yeah.
Bain had been with them before, but then had left to go off to the Push. And I think at that time, a version of the Push, I think they might have evolved a bit more by that point. But anyway, he was still playing with someone else. So, but yeah, they could have well after someone, but he wasn't available at the time. But yes, that's the first night. Do you remember it being John getting you along, or was it just
John had said to me a while before that night, oh, there's this group you should come and see at the Black Lion. I saw them the other night, and they're really good. They just do these. They're sitting down and they just play these long, drony songs. And I didn't think anything of it, because we were going out, not every night of the week, but 2 or 3 nights of the week, just going out to see bands or whatever. And this particular time when the Spacemen were playing at the Black Lion, he said, "Oh, you're going to come down tonight?" I said, "Yeah, we'll go down." So I went down with Tim from Telltale Hearts. I think Adi might have been there, and we didn't know what to expect. Didn't have a clue. And the Cogs of Time went on first. I thought, yeah, they're good. They're all right. And I remember they finished their set, and then the Spacemen started. I wasn't looking at the stage or anything like that. Nobody didn't know what to expect. And I remember I had a drink. I had a pint, and I was drinking. I was about to start drinking it, and they started. And I think it was 2:35. And it got halfway to my mouth, and I just stopped, and I was going, "Oh, this is good. Wow, this is all right." And I looked up, and Big Tim, the guy from Telltale Hearts, was shouting something into my ear about nothing to do with Spacemen 3, and it was all to do with Telltale Hearts. He'd go, "Yeah, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, blah, 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 blah." And I was just going, "Tim, hang on." And he was going, "No, don't listen to these, mate. Don't listen to them." I went, Tim, just wait. And well, that was it. From then on, it was just like, I knew this was something else. It was, yeah, beyond words. Have you read that book?
Indeed, yes. Because it was not only your first time that you'd seen Spacemen 3, it was also the first time that
Pat Fish
had seen them, and indeed Graham Holiday, who wrote the whole thing up more recently. Set the scene for us. What's the Black Lion like? I mean, I know it had this ridiculously high stage.
Yeah. It wasn't much bigger than your front room. If you had 50 people in there, it would be rammed. You can't really get an idea of the size of the place when you see that whistle test footage from this parade thing. But if anything, it makes it look like quite a big venue, but it's not at all. It was known as a real dingy backstreet sort of like dive, really, where lots of fights used to happen and drug use, blah blah blah, But it was great. It was brilliant. Great venue.
So that first time that you saw them then, and for Pat, did you already know Pat Fish by this time?
I knew him a bit. It was. I didn't know him. I got to know Pat very well in subsequent, years. He's a great mate, to this day. And I remember everybody was getting sucked in. And by the end of the night, Pat was like, his elbows on the stage, just looking up like that. Whereas at the beginning of the gig, he'd have probably been at the back or something, but it just sucked him in. And there was just something so compelling and charismatic about the way they were on stage, not the way they looked, but the way they were. There was an atmosphere, and God, I'm making this sound like the second coming, but it
No,
was,
but I think obviously this is the thing that we're mainly here to talk about. So we know
yeah,
you know what you mean. I think we spent a long time waffling on in our first podcast trying to articulate what it was that appeals to us so much. But it is difficult to distill down. To be honest, they're quite unlike a lot of the other bands that I really like. It's
yeah,
not that I think you've got to be immersed in the psychedelia or anything like that together, but there's
mm,
something about it's the drone, the
yeah,
repetition, and the way
yeah.
that it's done with such power. It's
And
just so
it's
enticing
the
and
balls to
seducing.
do it as well.
Yeah.
To be,
Yeah.
the brass to just do that with so much conviction. And they looked about 16. It was like, what are these guys? What the fuck are they on?
Yeah.
Are
I
they
think
tapping?
I think you nailed it, Mark. The first time I saw them, I thought that. I thought, what are they doing? There's two guys sitting down.
Yeah,
I had no idea what to expect, and the fact that they actually were in their own zone and
yeah,
they knew what they were doing, it was really well controlled,
yeah,
and it didn't actually seem to matter what was happening outside their zone.
yeah,
If you wanted it, then you could have it, and
yeah,
I had the same reaction.
yeah,
And also, what you said about having the balls to do it is something that I was saying on one of the previous podcasts as well. It's not like they were doing something which wouldn't have been possible to be done by other people,
yeah,
but you've just got to have the nerve to actually do it.
yeah.
I
I,
described it
I,
before as being like modern art. A lot of critics will go, "Oh, I could have done that." Well, yeah,
yeah,
you could have done, but you didn't do
yeah,
it, and they
yeah,
did.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I remember. I didn't know their names at the time, but the guy who was singing, Jason, was like high. I don't know whether this was purposeful or not, but he was behind the PA, sitting down, not giving a hoot whether he's been seen by the crowd at all. You know, but by the same token, that is stage presence, even though he's actively trying not to be like a stage performer. But I just thought that was genius, But I don't think it was I don't think it was premeditated. They just did what they did.
So did
Yeah.
you go and make contact with them after that gig?
Afterwards, I approached Pete and I said that was fantastic, mate. The only thing I can compare that to is like the first time I saw Barhouse in town, and his face sort of went, "Oh no!" I said, "No." I said, "No, you're not like Barhouse, but the impact is of a similar, impact. I couldn't put it in any better words, and yeah. I mean, to this day, I often think back on that night and think, what was it about? Well, it was amazing. And Natty was just looking straight ahead, eyes wide, just going, just genius, absolute genius. But it polarized a lot of people. I remember going to some wine bar, and that's what you did in the 80s in Northampton, and I was ranting on about Spacemen 3, and there was this girl who I was trying to get the attention of, and I was sort of going, "Yeah, you got to see Spacemen 3, they're absolutely fantastic." And she was going, "Oh, they're total crap. They just sit down and play these and I went, "That's why they're genius." So some people just see it. Well, they don't see it.
Well, you started playing gigs with them fairly quickly after that. Am I right in thinking that you sort of did an exchange thing where you would try and sort them out things in Northampton, and they would
That's
get you
right.
onto bills in rugby?
Yeah. I think me and Jason swapped numbers, and I really wanted to cultivate a rapport between us and them, but I knew that Telltale Hearts were nothing like Spacemen 3. And if truth be known, I really wanted them to like us, but I don't think they did. It doesn't matter at all. But at the time, when you're that young, you want to be you want to be liked.
Well, it's when you've got, and it's not like Northampton is that small a town, but when it not in massive cities, when you you tend to have things where all of the alternative cultures come together in one small space. And from all the descriptions I've read about it, that's a bit like the Reverberation Club run by Pete and Gavin Wilson ended up being like, really. You know, it sounded like a lot of the people who were there didn't really have a lot in common. But you've got all of the different alternative tribes coming together, because where else is there to go?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, you say that the Black Lion was just a small little room. What about that upstairs at the Blitz, where the Reverberation Club was held in Rugby? You remember anything much about that?
Oh, I remember. Was it upstairs?
Oh, it might not. No, sorry, I think I'm wrong about that. I probably just got it confused because it's all not from personal experience.
Yeah.
I think there was a back room, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's a back room downstairs. Yeah. I saw Spacemen 3 times there, I think. 2 or 3 times. One time they did Some Kind of Love, the Velvets, and I was just blown away by that. I love the Velvets and to this day. And I thought, oh wow, they're doing that. We must be, on the same kind of wavelength. I mean, but they're a lot of the music that they were into, I was unaware of at the time, and it was only when I got to know them that I became aware of all the stuff, that they were into. I mean, I was aware of it, but I was never at the time listening to it. All the Pebble stuff and the Stooges, etc. I was aware of it, but I only got to familiarize myself with it later on.
Very geeky question. In Eric Morse's book, he claims that you and Pat Fish went to see Spacemen 3 at their gig at the Mercia Leisure Centre.
No, it wasn't the Mercia Leisure Centre. It was it was a pub. It was upstairs in Coventry in a pub called the Sir Colin Campbell.
Yeah. So that's a Pilgrim Club gig then.
Yeah. And
the reason I was keen to find that one out is we were talking about that gig on our last podcast. And Gav from the Cogs, his memory was that the only people who were there were in the audience for Spacemen 3 were the Cogs of Time and Pete Kember's uncle. And since this contradicted that, I just wanted to.
I used to have a tape of the Mercia Leisure Centre gig. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
it is. It's
It's
doing the rounds now. It's a fantastic performance.
Yeah,
really good.
I mean, it sounds like there's no one there, and but you never quite believe it when people say, as Pete and Jason both said over the years, oh, no one came, and you think, yeah, well, you're exaggerating a bit. There were probably a few people, but no, it really does sound like no one came to that at all.
Yeah.
So what about these big Christmas and Easter gigs? There were sort of 3 of those big multi-band affairs.
Yeah. Jason used to, he would send me over a load of tickets for us to sell at our end, and a load of fly posters, etc. They were very organised, Spacemen, far more organised than I was, or that we were, and they really were on point, as it were, when it came to organising their gigs and their stuff and that. And I remember the first one we did was one of the Christmas on Mars, I believe.
I think on that first Christmas on Mars, there was Spacemen 3 and yourselves.
Yeah.
Magnolia Siege. Cogs of Time,
Total Magnolia Siege. They were a Northampton band.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was Richard and Dave, Gary. Yeah.
Well, they're on the tickets anyway. Whether everyone turned up or not is unsure.
I think that at that gig, when we turned up, they said, "Oh, you're going to have to go on first because somebody hasn't turned up." And we were like, "What the fuck?" It says we're going on whenever.
Yeah.
But anyway, it turned out we went on first, and we were good. We enjoyed it. We played a good gig, and then Pete and Jace came up to me afterwards, and they were saying, "Hey, yeah, that was really good." And I was thinking, "Oh yeah, thanks." But inside, I was thinking, "Yes."
That's what you were after from the first time. So
Yeah.
And there was another one the following year. You're still the Telltale Hearts. They've got Purple Things.
Loop
yeah.
at that one.
I remember Loop. That was the one and only time I've seen Loop, and I was gobsmacked because I thought, "Fuck, Jason looks different." I really thought it was Spacemen. I'm short-sighted anyway, but as I got nearer, they were sound checking, and it was uncanny. but fair play to them. They were heavily influenced by them, and they were letting their influence show. Not a problem with that.
No, fair enough. And also the Dark Side were playing, although I'm guessing that will still be when Nick was singing with the Dark Side.
Yeah. I don't remember the Dark Side then. That big.
Well, I can't expect someone who was playing at a thing to have sat there in the audience taking everything in. You've got other things to be doing as well.
Yeah.
And then shortly after that, then the following Easter, there's one, and that's largely similar lineup. Apparently, Luke were there again as yourselves and Spacemen 3 and the Dark Side. Perfect Disaster played that night as well.
Ah, did they? Do you know, they're all melding into one.
So you said this at the beginning, but when Spacemen 3 were getting it together to actually do some recording, it was you that suggested Carlo's studio. Yeah. So this was just something he set up in his back garden, is it?
No, Carlo. I'd known Carlo since I was about 12, and he was quite a sort of volatile individual, and we were best of mates a lot of the time. And he used to keep a load of fireworks that he'd amassed over the years. And I used to go around his house and go, in the middle of summer and go, Carlo, gonna let off your fireworks. He'd go, no, do it some other time. Anyway, he had this, or his parents had this, like an outhouse, which was like another smaller house further down their drive, if you like. And he converted it into a recording studio. And me and him used to go there. And he was the first person I played like electric guitar with, because he had this really cheap, I didn't even know what make it was, but electric guitar with this big amp. And I've got no idea what the amp was, but we used to be in there for hours just jamming away. And he didn't have a drum kit. He had all these lawnmower like tubs, the things that you stick on a lawnmower that collects the grass. He had them all, like, and a few tin cans and oil drums, and he just got this mega sound. And in a way, I suppose we probably would have we wouldn't have sounded like Spacemen, but we wouldn't have started a song or whatever we were doing and just went, after 2 minutes we'd stop. We'd have just carried on and on and on. So, but that was when I was about 17, 18. And then we did the syndromes, but Carlo, by this time he'd got a drum kit, but he didn't play with us for any time after that. That's when John Lucibello came in. And years later, I find out that, well, not that many years later, he converted this house where we used to do our jamming into a recording studio. And it was a, proper studio with like a little live room and a window, and then you got the mixing desk, etc., blah blah blah. And when I would be calling Jason every now and again, just about when we were going to go and play at the Blitz or whatever, or when they were going to come and play at the Black Lion. And in one of those conversations, I said, "Oh yeah, a mate of mine's got a studio. If I think Jason might have asked me if there were any studios that I knew about." And then one night, Jason Pete drove over, and I met them at Carlo's house, a pre-arranged meeting, and they went and had a look, met Carlo. And then after that, I went back home, and then Jason called sometime afterwards and said, yeah, we're going to go there. And that's when they recorded the big long roller coaster and Walking with Jesus. That's just fine,
Yeah, well, they recorded lots of demos first of all, and ended up using that Walking with Jesus as a single and going back.
I think they became known as the Northampton demos, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Because Piddington didn't really have the ring.
Oh yeah, I think we should start a campaign to get them officially renowned as the Piddington demos.
Yeah.
You went along, I think, while they were doing them at one point.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and there was because by this time there was Pete and Natty. Pete was the bass player then. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just went down to say hello, and they didn't. I got the impression that they weren't really getting on with the engineer. Not with Carlo. They liked Carlo, but there was an engineer there, and but I mean, they were great sessions.
Well, let's face it, they've always been pretty exacting. It must have been quite difficult to have
yeah,
got exactly what they wanted from it straight
yeah,
away.
yeah.
So, I mean, we're getting to the point of them beginning their recording career, and you were carrying on playing gigs together, and also in Northampton, you at places like the Five Bells as well.
Yeah.
Was that any bigger? Because
That was quite a sizable venue. Yeah.
I mean, I wondered if it was because some of the other gigs that Spacemen 3 were doing there, they were supporting like Fields and the Nephilim, and of course, like any band, I guess they would have not necessarily started as being that big, but when you hear names that you recognize, you think maybe
Yeah.
you're playing slightly bigger places now.
I think we play at that one. No, we didn't. No. Who was that guy? There was another one. We did play at the Five Bells with Spacemen.
Yeah, there was a poster from September '86. So this is going to be after Spacemen 3 have just got their first album out. But
Yeah.
it was you and them playing there and on a Sunday in September then.
Yeah.
I knew, before we get on to when you got more involved with them, I know you carried on going to see them throughout the years, really.
Yeah, I was a fan, major fan.
Mm-hmm.
Totally, yeah.
Any particular ones that you remember? I know that you went to see them just after New Year in '89 at Dingwalls.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I went to Dingwalls and
I think I was
My Bloody Valentine, I think, were playing.
There was a Dingwalls one in the summer of '88. I mean, they played there so many times, but yeah, that would have the one. Well, there might have been quite a few in My Bloody Valentine, but I know the first gig that Will played had My Bloody Valentine in support at Dingwalls. But, but I know there was a New Year one as well. People remember it being really cold and literally just after New Year.
Yeah, it was.
Me and Johnny went down to that on the train. And then we busked outside the venue, me and Johnny Mattock, and Pete walked by and he put £1. Yeah, but I remember the one at Dingwalls with My Bloody Valentine. I remember being distinctly, I was not unimpressed, that's not the right word, but My Bloody Valentine didn't make an impression on me whatsoever, because I think that was the night when they had their minds blown by Spacemen. I might be wrong, but
no, people have mentioned it that they started playing differently after they had Spacemen 3 support.
Yeah.
So could well
that
be.
might have been the night when Spacemen went on stage. I think Jason was playing the Rickenbacker as well, which was very weird. That was the one and only time I'd seen him play. He had this red Rickenbacker guitar. It might have been a 360. Anyway, Pete just came on stage and he went, "Fasten your seatbelts," and they went straight into Roller Coaster or something. It's genius.
Wow. Did it seem from your point of view as a fan that there was development going on over the years?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
Because people have talked. I remember Will talked about before he was in the band as always liking them, but then going to one show and thinking they've really stepped it up now. That the whole sound is more powerful. Right, yeah.
Well, I remember even back in the Black Lion days when they first had Pete Bain on bass. It was like I remember me and Pat Fish walked in at the same time, and Pat just looked up and he went, "Oh, Spacemen 4," and that really just boosted the sound. Having Pete's bass, it was fantastic. In a way, it was like a completely different band to the band before. Just as good, but totally different.
So when did you first meet Johnny Mattock then?
I met Johnny Mattock in the same hospital when I was a cleaner. When I met the first guy, Steve Harshaw, who played bass in the Syndromes. But by the time I'd met Johnny, I was like a care assistant, and Johnny was a cleaner. And I used to clock him and go, "Oh, I know you, don't I? You playing that band, The Apple Creation?" And he went, "Yeah, you playing Telltale Hearts?" I went, "Oh, yeah." So it went on from there. And I remember Jason asked me once to put up an ad in a Northampton music shop saying drummer wanted for Spacemen 3, and all the influences, all the points of reference. I can't remember them, but one of them was Tav Falco, and that was the ad that Johnny answered, and he got the job, as we all know. And I think I knew Johnny then enough to like call him up, or if ever I met him in town, like, oh, well done, mate, you know, fantastic. And Johnny was a big fan of the Telltale Hearts anyway, so he was aware of me, and I was aware of him and his group, the Apple Creation. And oh yeah, Johnny had drummed on a demo of ours in that group, Wild.
Oh yeah, Wild.
Yeah.
Next one I was going to ask about. There's very, very little evidence of Wild's existence out on the internet, I have to say.
But we didn't really do much. There was an earlier version of the Slipstream song "Healing Hands" that we did, that subsequently came out. I think it was on the Transcendental.
Yeah,
and that was comprised of just mates. Was Johnny in that band? No, Johnny wasn't in Wild, but he did drum on the demo.
I found a page about Northampton bands that suggests that Wild was yourself, Adam Pickup, Tim Cantwell, Tim Oliver, and Tim Crisp.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah,
Tim Cantwell was the drummer. Tim Cantwell, yeah. Yeah, and but prior to him joining us, Johnny helped us out by doing the demo. Yeah.
Was Wild
and Tim Cantwell, sorry to interrupt, Tim Cantwell drummed in Telltale Hearts after we got rid of the drum machine.
Right.
Did Wild go up? Was it after, or was it another one of these parallel things with Telltale Hearts, or was it just what you?
No, Telltale Hearts had dissolved by then,
right?
And I wasn't doing much, and because me and Tim Crisp were working at this same hospital, and we were sharing a house together with Tim Cantwell. So that's how it all came about. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it's all fitting together now. Yeah.
So that was, I guess, still going on around the time when you went down to that gig to see Spacemen 3 at Waterman's in May '89.
That's right, yeah.
When it seemed that everyone knew what was going to happen except for you, smiling away in the background. So what happened when you got there? Wow, cliffhanger ending. What could possibly be about to happen at that gig?
It was a bit teasing everybody with that.
Yes, indeed. Well, I mean, unfortunately, because we didn't know that we were going to cut this into pieces, there's not a nice ending there. You'll have to come back next time to discover exactly what happens at that Spacemen 3 gig. But since we didn't have a proper wrap up, we didn't have a chance to say at that point, thank you very much, Mark. We really enjoyed our chat with you. And there's more to look forward to in the next edition, which will be the one that's mainly about Mark's time in Spacemen 3 and Spiritualized. There'll be more after that, of course, because he's been involved in so many other things since then, his own projects, of course, and guesting on all sorts of other people's records and concerts as well.
That's right. No, it was an absolutely fascinating discussion, I have to say. I learned so much about Mark that I didn't know, and the bands he'd been in and contributions that he'd made.
Yeah. Absolutely, and what a friendly,
a lot of fun
guy as well.
Oh, lovely chap.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Since a lot of what Mark was talking about is the Northampton and surrounding scene from the mid-'80s, there's an interesting little radio clip that we can play you from Radio Northampton, where they're outlining that week's gig guide.
Into the county-wide gig guide to find out the events taking place in and around Northamptonshire and just over the county boundary in the coming week. As always, we begin this evening, Sunday the 20th of October, at the Black Lion in St Giles Street. The Cellar Band, a jazz band at that, are on stage. Meanwhile, at the Birmingham Powerhouse, the Fall are appearing, and at JB's in Dudley, you can see Trevor Burton. Then friends of the programme indeed, Hayes, the Sheffield band, they're appearing in Kingsthorpe at the Old Five Bells. Those are the gigs tonight, Sunday the 20th of October. Tomorrow is the 21st, and Everything But the Girl and the Apartments are appearing at Birmingham Odeon. At Nottingham's Rock City, it's Rem and the Faith Brothers. double appearance there at Nottingham's Rock City. And at the Royal Concert Hall, also in Nottingham, it's Billy Connolly. Final entry in the gig guide for Monday is at the Derngate Centre here in Northampton. Guildhall Road, of course. Mark Almond is appearing there on Monday evening. And this, of course, is the start of his rescheduled UK tour. Had problems with his appendix earlier. He's better now, fully recovered, and appearing live on stage at the Derngate on Monday. To Tuesday, and Robin Hitchcock and the Egyptians are appearing at Warwick University in Coventry. And at the Royal Concert Hall in Nottingham, it's Billy Connolly for his second night. That's Tuesday in the gig guide. On to Wednesday at the Black Lion in Northampton is the Billy G Band. On Thursday at the Black Lion, it's Eric Whitehouse. And on Friday, a group called Spacemen 3 are appearing at the Black Lion in St Giles Street. The county-wide gig guide on the Pulse on Radio Northampton.
Well, what have we had there in the space of 1 week? The Fall, Everything But the Girl, REM, as they said in that clip, usually known as REM, Billy Connolly, Mark Ullman, Robin Hitchcock. I mean, it's and the venues as well for people who either know the area or just have seen like the history of Spacemen 3. Lots of places that they played as well. JB's in Dudley, the old Five Bells, and of course finishing off with Spacemen 3's appearance, or one of many Spacemen 3 appearances at the Black Lion. That was a lovely little time capsule, that thing. And thanks very much to Graham Holliday, who originally recorded it and sent it to us. Well, although that interview's taken up most of our time for this episode, there's still a bit of time available where we can talk about some other bands that you may be interested in. And Mark, you were going to talk about a scene rather than one particular band, although I know there's something in particular that you wanted to mention there. And
Yeah.
it's certainly outside my normal area of experience.
Yeah, not exactly local to rugby. It's really just going to touch on the psychedelic scene, which is going on in South America, which has been going on for quite a few years now. A lot of this would appeal to Spacemen 3 fans. Indeed, a lot of the bands have been heavily influenced by Spacemen 3, but Chile's the country I'm going to focus on, but Peru, Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, there's bands in all these countries making a lot of really good psychedelic music. But in Chile, there's one band in particular I was going to focus on called the Psychedelic, Shaffers and Jet Plane, which when I first heard of them, I thought they can't be serious with a name like that. They only made one record. It's a really excellent record, self-titled. It's the brainchild of a guy called Vicente Sichowitz, if I pronounce that correctly, originally from Santiago, Chile, now resides in Berlin. Indeed, Berlin seems to be producing its own little psychedelic scene. A lot of the guys from Chile now live there. Of course, our own Will Carruthers lives in Berlin, as does Anton Newcomb from Brian Jonestown Massacre. Focusing on the Chilean side, there are a lot of bands still over there. There's a lot of these guys are actually linked up, play with each other. A band called La Hell Gang, Holy Drug Cup will be familiar to many. Another more kind of motoric krautrock type band called Volkszoid are also very good. But the Psychedelic, Shaffers and Jet Plane, when their album came out, and I ordered it, I was surprised to see fairly prominent letters on the back, the words "God Bless Spacemen 3." So obviously this was going to be something that was going to be vaguely interesting. And indeed it is. But the main guy, Vicente Sichowitz, is also involved. In fact, I think he's partly renamed himself as Foxtrot Sierra and his Uniforms. And he's made, I think, at least 5 albums. Rather bizarre titles, one called Surfing California, Fender Hobo Lounge is another, Ersatz Cowboy. These are all pretty psychedelic, very Spaceman orientated. A lot of Brian Jonestown Massacre mixed in there. And the Psychedelic, Shaffers and Jet Planes album has a mixture of really both these bands. They've actually made a lot of the music their own, but I think with tracks like, there's one called No Return Blues, there's another one called In Margaritas with David Icke, all kind of fairly quirky titles. You can definitely hear the influence which has come from rugby. And I really can't recommend these albums enough. Foxtrot Sierra just keep on making records. They're also linked with another band called Chicos de Nazca, also now based in Berlin, who have released an endless list of albums. All this stuff is on Bandcamp. You can buy it, you can listen to it. Some of it comes out as a physical product. Some of them are just digital MP3 type things, but I really can't recommend these enough. It also leads on to a tribute album, which actually came out from Argentina, called Jugando con Fuego, obviously translates as playing with fire, which came out on Pleroma Discos, which is an Argentinian label, and it is literally a Latin American tribute album to Spacemen 3, Spectrum and Spiritualized. They've taken fairly unusual tracks, I think, not the most obvious ones, and made them their own. And it's a free download on Bandcamp, very easily found, and again gives you a good introduction to a lot of those bands. But heading back to the one which I started off with, I think the Psychedelic, Shaffers and Jet Plane probably made the best of that kind of drony South American psych. And although the album is deleted, it can be easily listened to via Bandcamp and indeed downloaded.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a whole load of things that I'm really completely ignorant of, and you tipped me off when we were planning what you were going to chat about some of this, and I had a chance yesterday to listen to one of the Foxtrot Sierra albums, and yeah, absolutely lovely. And if you want to try before you buy, then I think that one seemed to have found its way entirely onto YouTube. So you can listen to them first, but if it is something that takes your fancy, Bandcamp I think is always the best way to go to support artists directly. I'll put some links to all these things on the podcast page on my site and a few other places where you might be listening to us from. So yeah, enjoy and investigate.
That's right. Mark. I think it's actually reached the point where if I hear of a psychedelic band mentioned on Facebook or somewhere like that, and someone says, "Oh, they come from Santiago," or they're from somewhere in Argentina, I think it's probably worth a look.
Okay, thanks for listening. We'll be back probably quicker than we normally would be with the second part of our interview with Mark Refoy. Until then, we've been Spaceman Pod. Thanks for coming.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.